Hey everybody, how's it going? We are doing a little top 10 list tonight of one of our favorite artists, Björk. What we're going to do is we're going to go around the room. We have Andrew in New Jersey, we have Nico in Massachusetts, and we have Robert in Sweden. So, all over the place. Thanks for joining us tonight, guys. Looking forward to this. And what we're going to do, we'll start with Andrew and we'll just go around and we're going to start with our number 10, talk about which song it is, what we like about it, get into a little dialogue, and just go around and then work our way down to number one and see what songs we mutually agree on, which ones we differ on, and that's pretty much it. You guys want to just jump right into it?
Yeah, let's
Cool.
do it.
All right. What do you got, Andrew?
All right, so my number 10 on the top 10 favorite songs by Bjork is we just discussed it. It's pronounced yoga. So for those of you in the States, it's we've got some intel from our friend Robert here that that's
Yeah.
the correct pronunciation. And a lot of these, like, I wouldn't claim to be, I'm a fan, and I've just used this as a opportunity to dive in. And one of the things I tried to do was just kind of follow the people behind the scenes a little bit, and just come up with like a couple good, I don't know, things that I found interesting or people I discovered. And one guy I found that was involved with that album was you. I mean, I hope I don't mispronounce this, but Yumir Diodato, who he was a arranger, orchestrator. He is, and he's worked with a lot of famous people, and he was heavily involved with that album with Bjork. And I just thought that was cool. He's from Brazil. He he's worked with so many crazy. He has his name in a lot of super popular songs like "Celebration" by Kool and the Gang. Stanley Turrentine. He's worked with Hubert Laws, Astrud Gilberto. So
Hmm.
I just thought that was really neat that she finds these like super heavy arranger orchestrators to work with her,
Yeah.
and I'll talk about some of the other ones later, but yeah, that's just kind of my spearhead into that song. And
Was that just for
pass it
this
off.
one song, or was he on the whole album?
He was on the whole album. He was involved with the whole album, but that was just something because this heavy element of strings in the song that I just
Hmm.
figured. I was like immediately thinking, who, I know that she does a lot of her own composing, and she's very, her depth is very wide, but it was just cool to know who was out there helping her actually, dot the I's, cross the T's, and
Right.
stuff. So, yeah. So, did anyone else choose this for number 10 or?
It is my number 10.
It's also my number 10. It
Oh,
was
that's easy.
I will say it was really really difficult to put them in any kind of order. Like
Oh,
it's
yeah.
easy for me to pick 10 tunes,
Exactly.
but then to go from 10 to 1, that was
Yeah.
super difficult. But yeah, I mean, it's a great song. It's a great sort of like I think it's a great entry point for people that don't know her music because
Yeah.
it has a lot of like the I guess you could say almost like modern like pop sensibilities to it. Like it sounds very similar to like something that like even like Beyonce would be responsible for. So like the people that aren't into like Mike we were saying like some of the weirder stuff, it's almost like a good like boiling the frog
Hmm.
jumping off point to get into her music, and the string arranging is just
Yeah.
so killer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's that dude Ymir.
Yeah.
Ymir de Diodato. He's Portuguese, or sorry, Brazilian. Yeah.
And also, this album was the first album that Mark Bell had also worked on, right?
I think so, yeah.
Right.
Right. So obviously, I think he did. That was a great contribution to that album as well. And one of the things that I love about this song too, like you were saying, Nico, this is actually the first song that like got me interested in Bjork too, because I always heard about her and I was going through and I found this song. I was like, all right, this is incredible. Like, and then I checked out Homogenic and went from there. Um, that's how you say it, right? It's not homogenic, homogenic, right?
It's the same thing. I've been saying homogenous.
Yeah, we'll have to work all these out. We'll have Robert let us know. What do you say,
I,
Robert?
uh, I don't know how to pronounce it. I have no idea. It's not a Swedish word, so how would I know?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of these.
Photogenic, homogenic.
Hmm.
So,
I mean, a lot of these album titles aren't even real words.
oh,
Yeah,
homogenous.
homogeneous. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in the comments, if they can correct us in any way that's possible,
Yeah, just
something
make it
like
cool.
that. But another thing I love about this song too is it's like a great blend of sort of that more natural, raw, like string arrangements and vocals, and the way that it gradually implements the electronics throughout the song, like really interesting contrast, and something that Björk is, done great throughout all of her albums. And like you were saying, I think it's a perfect song to introduce somebody to Björk.
Definitely.
Nice.
All right, Robert, what's your number 10?
I picked the first song I ever heard from her, which is Oceania.
Oh, nice.
She sang it. It was probably playback, but she sang it back in 2004 during the Athens Olympics. I was really mesmerized by the performance, and I've been a fan ever since.
That's a wild first song to hear.
Yeah, for real.
That's like that really dark one on Medulla, right?
I wouldn't say it's that dark.
Or what am I thinking? I'm thinking of a different one.
Yeah, maybe Where's the Line or something. Yeah, Oceania. Yeah, it's. I think it's just such a. The lyrics as well. They're very, she sings from the perspective of as if she was like the personification of the ocean, and how humans came from her, and Sean also helped her with the lyrics. I just think it's beautiful, and Mark Bell with the instrumental, and he produced it alongside her, and yeah, I think it's great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sweet. Or how about 9? What do you got for 9, Andrew?
I put in Hyper Ballad at number 9.
Nice.
And, obviously that was like, I feel like that's one of her most popular, I would say. But,
yeah.
That was something you talked about a song that brought you into Björk. That was definitely the one that brought me into Björk. Yeah, I didn't really have too much more on that one. Just, there's something about, I feel like her phrasing is there's something about how it's like she, and I guess you could say this for a lot of the songs, is that she's kind of nomadic with the melody, right? She just feels nomadic in the way that she phrases, and that's kind of her whole vibe. She's just kind of like this like landloper kind of traveling spirit kind of thing. I don't know, from Iceland, and she's crazy, but she I just like how her phrases are like a lot of them are like, I feel like they're longer than just like you typically hear like 4 8-bar phrases all the time. But then when I hear her music, it's like the melody can take a whole journey, and then I almost get lost in it, and then it comes in and hits you hard somewhere, and like that's the emotional impact I get from her, is like just her ability to write these like super beautiful, long formed melodies and gets away with being on the top 10 charts with things that you never, so many other artists probably couldn't get away with. I don't
know how she pulls off that balance. It's so hard that's like such a magical balance that she pulls off. And in terms of what you're saying about the vocal phrasing too, she really does have this like ability to like do these vocal phrases where like the timing of it, it's like really hard to pinpoint like where they are with the beats and stuff like that. Like the song Mouth Mantra, like that vocal melody, it's always like, I'm trying to figure out like what beats it's lining up on, and it like somehow she just has this way to just like flow so effortlessly over like the 4/4 time. And same thing with this song too. So I've always been attracted to her vocal phrasing.
You don't lose that sense of pulse either, though. It's like as meandering as it can be. I always feel like I'm at least feeling a basic pulse. I feel like she doesn't lose that part, at least.
Yeah.
It's like the rhythm is always kind of there for the most part.
I wonder if that's something that is like specific to Icelandic music, because I don't know much other than Sigur Rós. I don't know a lot of other Icelandic music. So I'd be curious to like look into that more, because it is something that seems like very specific to her. Like I haven't heard a lot of other vocalists do that the way that she does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so cool.
I think it's like, I remember hearing somewhere that a lot of like her workflow is she will record the vocals first, and like not worry about the grid and then sort of drag them into place later.
Really?
Probably. Yeah, I remember hearing that somewhere where, you know, like when she was recording, it might have even been Hyper Ballad or another tune like that, where she just tracked it sort of like a cappella and then built the production around the tune. And so like that, plus, you know, like there's definitely like some intentional or unintentional, who's to say, like there's definitely like some odd time stuff as well, but that the grid and like that sort of like funkiness is always there, and sometimes like she'll just skate over the top of it. Like there's definitely some songs that just have like a 4/4 drum machine groove, and she's just starting in the middle of the bar and like going
Right.
you know,
Right.
great.
Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah, that's awesome. So my number 9, I'm going to be cliche with this one. I'm going to go with Army of Me. Yeah, I just love, I think it's kind of marks like a transition in her sound, going from debut to post, where the opening track is, you know, this like super heavy, intense, hard hitting, almost metal song. I mean, you know, she's not doing like screaming and stuff, but it's like very distorted and hard hitting and aggressive, and really interesting chords. It's got this bass line that's actually like in the Locrian mode, which is super uncommon. Did you see that video?
That out. I was like, hopefully someone will figure this out.
I thought it was Phrygian, but there's a video. Some guy, I think his name's David Bennett or something, he made a video on it. Really cool. And then the contrast between the two sections, just like a really badass song. So that's my number 9.
Mine too. There's an alternate version. There's an alternate version of it on Voltaic. I don't know if you guys know that record. It's just like a bunch of alternate takes of songs throughout her career, but there's an alternate version of Army of Me on there, and that bass line is like replaced with like a square wave, sort of like almost like Game Boy from Hell sound, and there's like a horn section on it and like a bunch more. It's like a much more flushed out arrangement. I could see why they went with the sparser one, but I kind of like that one better because it just sounds so much more huge and so much more aggressive, and it's already an aggressive song, so you're just like dialing it up. I would definitely say check it out if you haven't heard it.
No, hell yeah.
Different
for sure.
spin on the tune.
I always thought this song would go great with like an 8-string guitar, like an 8-string guitar cover of that. You know? Just metal it out as much as possible. So we got the same. You and me have the same list so far. So we'll see how long that lasts. Of course.
Yeah, right. If we go 10 for 10, we gotta do something to commemorate.
Yeah, we got to figure something. I feel like Robert's list is going to be the wild card, starting out with Oceania. I like that. So Robert, what's your number 9?
My number 9 is the Boho Dance, which is a cover of a Joni Mitchell song. It was like, I think it was recorded about the same period as Vespertine. So it has quite a similar sound to that one. And, you know, getting into Björk I feel like I need to pronounce it in an English way when I say her name, which seems weird. I'm used to calling her Björk. But
All right, man. That's what
no, say it like that. It sounds way better.
Yeah.
all right.
Keep the Americans honest.
Right. I mean, I've always been like a huge Joni Mitchell fan, and the fact that like one of my favorite musicians likes another one of my favorite musicians, that's really cool. And yeah, I feel like it's a very underrated song. It sounds like something of Vespertine, which is a lot of people's favorite record of hers. So yeah, it's an underrated one, and I feel like more people should know about it.
I had no idea that there's a Joni Mitchell cover on Vespertine.
No, like it sounds like something of Vespertine.
Oh, what album is this one on?
It's from a best of album from Joni Mitchell, where a lot of like people came together and did like covers from hers. There's like Prince and Annie Lennox, and I think like Payday Lang and so on. Yeah, it sounds like something of Vespertine because it was recorded about the same time. It came out in 2007, but because like the project took such a long time to release and find musicians who would want to do covers and so on. So yeah, and the Hissing of Summer Lawns, which is like the record it's originally from, is like one of my favorite albums as well.
Wow. And what's the name of the song again? I'll put it in the comments.
The Boho Dance.
Okay.
Yeah, that's a killer cover. I honestly like it better than the original. It's like sacrilege from Joni Mitchell.
Great. All right, number 8, Andrew.
Number 8 is Harm of Will from Vespertine. Um, I guess I've just got a thing for the strings and the sweeping melodies. The choral stuff that is in there is awesome. Um, I was diving in, and it seems like where you would think there would be someone helping her arrange or have a hand in that part, and maybe they did, and it's just not documented. But that was all her, from what I could see, and yeah, no, I didn't. Kind of to piggyback off, what Robert was saying. Um, that album Vespertine is definitely probably my favorite album from what I was
Yeah, mine.
researching, and yeah, Harm of Will got number 8. There's a couple other I have on the from the album that I'll probably dive into more later, but
Yeah, it's such a good album.
yeah.
And I think that album too, I think I could be wrong, but I think one of the differences between Homogenic and Vespertine was that I think she transitioned over to more production, like using samples of instruments rather than using actual live instruments, right? Because didn't they say like when Vespertine came out, it was around the early days of Napster, and she wanted to produce it in a way so that if it was downloaded, that the quality wouldn't lose anything in the quality. Which I'm not actually sure how that works. Like, what's the difference between sampling something and using a real instrument? Like, would that actually affect the quality if it was downloaded?
I don't know. I think that's like, like it might be. I don't want to say like totally audiophile propaganda, but I think like there's probably something. It's something that to do. Like, you think like the early days of like, I don't even know, like whatever was before MP3. There's probably some concern about like the fidelity of any kind of orchestral recording versus just like a crushed drum
Right.
sample. Like if the bit rate goes down from like, like low to very low, that's much less of a difference than 1 to 1/2.
Right.
Well, and since we're kind of in that realm, like it was cool to read about the collaborations from that album, and like there was 10, from what I read, there was 10 credits of people that were just programming, or not just programming, but 10 different people had a programming credit on that album. And like one of the biggest ones was Thomas, I hope I'm saying it right, Thomas Knack. And what was cool is that a lot of those like kind of gritty, like poppy, those like micro beat kind of things that are in that album. I thought it was really cool that producer, that musician who brought that element to the album. Most of those recorded samples are actually not electronic. They're actually like real natural sounds, like clicking or like, they're not actually electronically created. They're just sampled. They're just recorded, but it kind of creates, I guess it's called micro beats.
Do you take the real instrument and then sample, like, do you only have to sample one note and then you could put it into a sampler and play any note you want on the MIDI keyboard?
Right. Like I think just reading like all the programming that took place, it was probably like a whole team of people that were collaborating and building basically a network for the album. So it's very cool, very very interesting.
And one thing
that was that was 97, or I don't know what
2001, right? Or early, maybe I think it's early 2000, because I know Homogenic was 97, I think, right?
Oh, that's right. Right.
And it was a couple of years after that. But another thing that's like a very distinctive sound to that album too is the music box that they sampled, and that's like one of my favorite things about that album. Like that, what's that song right before Frosty? Like that whole like little interlude song. It's so beautiful, so haunting too. The way that they take like a music box and they make it sound so dark and mysterious. I mean, it's like, I don't know anybody else that could pull that off. And then even in Pagan Poetry, I think like that opening part is that music box doing like those really dark arpeggios. It's such a good album. I can't say enough good things about it.
Yeah.
My number 8, I'm gonna go with Who Is It off of Medulla. Super solid song. When I initially listened to Medulla, I wasn't that crazy about it, but I think it was actually because I didn't realize the degree to how much that album is almost all just vocals. Like I didn't actually realize that. And then I watched a documentary on the making of that album, and I saw this song and how it was made. And like, I don't think there's any instruments on this song, but like you listen to it, you can't even tell. Like I saw the video of Razel from the Roots. He's doing like the beatboxing, and that like blew my mind because it sounds so much like a real drum beat. And I was like, holy shit, that's insane. And just a super solid song, really beautiful vocal melody. I love the harmonies underneath it. Really cool bass line. And I love that album now after listening to it more. I feel like Medulla for me was an album I had to listen to a couple times, but the more I listen to it, the more I like it. Always loved that. And even that song, Where Is the Line? I mean, I'm pretty sure that's all vocals too, like that really deep sound. I think it's like some guy, I forget his name, but it's called the human trombone. It's like the sound that he's making. So he's like these really deep, and then you have Mike Patton from Faith No More doing those really like demonic, like breathy, low vocals. Such a badass song. I mean, just an incredible album.
Yeah. So my number 8, this might be a controversial pick, but I picked a backup song in case it doesn't count, is the song Birthday by the Sugar Cubes, because it's like kind of a Björk song. It's pretty much her song. Before she went solo, she was in sort of like this Icelandic, I don't know, like alternative, like weird jangle pop band, for those of you who don't know it. And this song is just an absolute banger from start to finish. And the thing that gets me about it every time is, it's like sort of typical like late 80s stuff. There's chorus on the bass, there's chorus on the guitar, the drums are super processed. It's almost like very Cocteau Twinsy. And but her vocal performance is just ridiculous from start to finish. And there's this melodic figure in the chorus that she like goes up, she covers a huge amount of range, like with like growling at the same time, but it's completely poppy and like super catchy at the same time. It's just absolutely like, people always talk about how like sort of like otherworldly the vocals are, and it's fascinating to me to hear like this sound that everybody knows, kind of like, the 80s jangle pop sound, but with the extraterrestrial vocals on the top of it. It's such an interesting juxtaposition. I keep coming back. I'm always listening to it.
Yeah, I'll have to check that. I've never listened to the Sugar Cubes, I have to admit.
It's totally
I've heard about them forever, but I never really went down that rabbit hole. I mean, it's a lot different, right? It's more like techno, like poppy, right?
Yeah, it's like a little bit of like, it's like that 80s sound, like, like Cocteau Twins, New Order, like chorus on everything, rock band.
Right. But then in between the Sugar Cubes and then Björk's solo stuff, she was in like a jazz trio, right?
Maybe, I'm not sure.
There's like an album, like when you look up Björk on Spotify, there's like an album before debut.
Glinglow.
Yeah. What group is that?
I don't know what the guy's called. Right, but she released it after the Sugar Cubes period and before debut.
Right. Nice. Cool. All right, what do you got for number 8, Robert?
I have Come to Me, which was originally released on debut, but I prefer the version from that she recorded for the Volnicura live album. It has strings instead of instrumental beats. It's lovely that even though the song is like almost 30 years old, she still sings it live, and it's still relevant for her. It's lovely that it's produced by Mark Bell, and it's lovely that she sort of like paid homage to him. Like they were like, I mean, he was one of the producers she worked the most with. So I'm sure they had like a great relationship. She did write something on Facebook when he died about how sad she was. So yeah, Come to Me. It's a wonderful love song.
What was the last album that Mark Bell had done? Was it Volta?
Yeah, there was some songs from Volta there. I think it was he produced or co-produced. I can't tell for sure. But was it Declare Independence? I think.
Oh, okay. Is that song about Greenland?
Yeah, she did. She did sing about Greenland and the Faroe Isles, about like how they should, leave Denmark.
Yeah,
which is really, it's really cool that she sings a song about in support of you know, ethnic groups, you know, leaving the country they belong to and, you know, start their own nation. That's a little unlikely, you know, that it's not common for like pop singers to sing about stuff like that.
And I feel like most of the stuff she writes about too isn't very political. I mean, that album in particular seems to be definitely the most politically charged, like with that. And then even Earth Intruders is like, that's a political thing too, right?
Yeah, I think so, yeah. I mean, you can certainly interpret that way, whether or not it was intended.
When she performed Declare Independence in Shanghai, she started, you know, shouting Tibet, Tibet, which is like, she has huge balls if she can do that.
Yeah. Yeah, she does have very big balls. Number 7, Andrew.
I had the Boho dance, number 7, which we already covered.
Sweet. We got 2 Boho dances. I got to keep track of these. So for my number 7, I was torn. I had 2 different songs that I kept alternating between, but I think I'm going to have to go with The Gate off of Utopia. Really love that song. Super, super epic when the chorus comes in. You have those really deep bass notes. But like when you listen to that song with headphones, like that chorus just hits so hard. I'm just like, oh my God. And then really cool samples too. I don't really know what's like all those weird, like, you know what I'm talking about? Those weird like voice noises. I don't know what do you even call that, but just the way the song builds, kind of like mysterious at the opening, a little spacey. And then like that, like I was saying, that really deep bass note comes in and you have that chorus. It's so intense, but easily my favorite song on Utopia. I think Utopia is an amazing album. I think a lot of people hate on it a little more than is warranted. But yeah, that's my number 7.
Yeah, I love that too. Mine's on there, not my number 7, but I put it a little further. But it's those samples. It's so wild. It's got to be like some kind of like reverb black magic, like in post. With the flute and the vocal samples, but it's the use of space is somehow like every time she starts a new phrase, it seems like it comes in too early and too late at the same time. Like I've listened to that song so many times and I can still never exactly predict when it's going to come in. There's just like such a sense of like physical landscape to the sound, you know, like way beyond just like left headphone, right headphone. Like you feel like there's a pocket universe in that audio recording with the spatialization of all the sounds.
I thought like
crazy.
A really similar thing about her too. Just like, but I wasn't thinking of like a similar idea of just like I always feel like I'm in a really highly decorated room. You know, like I'm in like a room where like there's so many details on all sides of me. You know, when I listen.
Yeah.
To that song, like I've been listening to him once you guys say him if I don't know him, but. Yeah, it's not like the sweeping panning. It's like it's almost not even left right. You know, it feels completely 3-dimensional when you're inside of her music. Yeah. I agree with you.
I mean, and from a production standpoint, I mean, she's always trying to push the boundaries. I mean, she said like, you know, the more stuff she has at her disposal, the happier she is. Because she said like when she gets into the studio and she has all these different things she can mess with, she feels like a kid in a candy store. You know, so she's like constantly trying to push the envelope when it comes to stuff like that. And it's just like. One of the things that I love about her music, you never know what you're going to expect. I mean, it's so out of left field all the time, which is probably why some people might find her music off-putting at first, but I don't think that's accurate. I think you got to, you know, give it a chance because I think it's some of the most amazing music you'll ever hear. Some of the most original stuff you'll ever hear also.
Most definitely. There's a really good book about, I think it might literally just be called like History of Electronic Music, but I read it when I was in school, and you know it's from sort of the beginning of everything, like proto synthesizers in the 1920s, sort of like to where we are now. And there's some like the people at EarCam, which was like this French sort of like research lab where they did all this pioneering sonic stuff. They had an interview with some people in there, and they were always talking about like how we have to make sounds that could never happen in real life, and like, you know, we should be focusing on coming up with new sounds that can never occur in a natural acoustic environment versus just trying to replicate the instruments that we always have. And I think she does a great job of that. I think that song is a prime example of sort of that ethos in action, where it's like, you know, people have their drum machines that have snare drum sounds that sound like acoustic snare drums. And it's like, well, if we have limitless power at our fingertips. Like, why are we trying to replicate a snare drum? We can just
Right.
bring it in. We need to come up with, and that whole album is just like sounds that could never exist acoustically, you know?
And then there are even times where she'll use instruments that like can't be duplicated too. Like there's that one song on Biophilia, I think it's called Sacrifice. It has, you know what I'm talking about? It's got that instrument. There's only one in existence. I think it's called a, what the hell is it called? It's like a regular instrument, but they changed the first letter. Does anyone know what I'm talking about? Let me look this up real quick. This is crazy. Let me just find this real quick because this is worth. Oh, it's called a harpsichord. If you listen to the song Sacrifice. Watch, there's a documentary on the making of Biophilia as well, and they show you this instrument. They took this guy like 3 years to make this instrument or something like that, and it's something that has to be programmed. It's like a piped instrument, and you have to program the notes. And they said it takes like a day to program like 30 seconds of music or something. So like they did all this crazy programming, and then they brought the instrument for the live performance of Biophilia. So this is like, if she made any mistake during the live performance, like it's all over, because you can't stop and start over. This, like, once this instrument starts, it has to be like exactly on, and then there's no second chance, you know. So look into that instrument; it's wild. Yeah.
Cool.
So we're on 7. So Robert, what's your number 7?
I have Oxygen, which is a song she made with Evelyn Glennie back in like I think the mid 90s, which I think it's so interesting that back in like the peak of her career, she chose to like collaborate with someone like Evelyn Glennie. It's entirely, you know, sung in gibberish, and it was, you know, just made there and then. They didn't like write it beforehand or anything. It's just, you know, them having fun and recording the music and then releasing it.
That's weird. I never heard of that one either. I gotta check these out. You're throwing me some curveballs. I like it.
Yeah, it's not on any streaming services. You'll have to check on YouTube.
Oh, okay. What are we at? We're at 6, right?
Right.
Number 6. Yeah. All right, Andrew.
I have coming in at number 6, Human Behavior, and I was finding some cool stuff about this track. Just its roots to jazz, you know, because I don't know if we've covered that, but like I went to study jazz in school, and that was how I got to Björk, was through my, you know, I guess now I kind of understand more looking more into her, but that was just something I was really interested in terms of like being in like a large jazz ensemble, and we got to like play these really cool arrangements, blah blah blah, and you know, so that's how I got into Björk, was through the jazz realm. And I guess on this track, which you'll definitely notice, it's the Joe Beam sample at the beginning. It's like a guitar sample from it's in the record is Ray Brown Orchestra, arranged by Quincy Jones, another huge like awesome arranger, and then producer obviously. And I just thought that was really cool, just the connections. I wrote something else. Oh, I thought it was really unique. The way she was ending her phrases on this tune was like, I feel like, you know, it's a very bluesy, it's kind of minor pentatonic, I would say. You know, the that lick in the beginning. I had to go back.
Is that lick the Joe Beam sample?
Yeah, that lick is.
Oh, okay. With the da 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 da.
Yeah, right. So I'm thinking, like, it was just interesting to me that like she was always ending her. In jazz school, it's like you're taught never play the fourth over the, you know, like the fourth scale degree over a major chord or something, you know, and
yeah, I'm playing right. Yeah, because she goes like, what did she do? Ends on like, right in the vocal melody.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, it's like this bluesy bass line, and the vocal melody is like so dark. It's like, I love it.
Like it's like so, it's just very unique, right? So I wrote that down, just being like, man, that's bold. She could just, it's like she's not even really, you know, I'm sitting here analyzing it like a you know, theory geek, but
right.
Like really I know that she's not, that's not even within her. She's probably just thinking so much beyond that, and it, you know, she commits to it. It works. It's like, I would love to go back in time and just raise my hand in class like that. Well, Björk didn't
Right.
plays a fourth on that,
Wait, so because you were saying that you got introduced to her in school, did you play arrangements of her songs in jazz band?
I can't remember if it was either we played something arranged or my director Dan Gailey was he was a huge fan of Björk, so he was always constantly throwing her music our way when we were like younger, and when you're 18, that's just like
it's a great
you don't
song.
know until you know her music.
Yeah. It's a hell of a song to like open her first album with too. It's just perfect opener.
It's amazing.
It's classic. My number 6, I'm gonna go with Aurora off of Vespertine. Very beautiful song.
Yeah.
Amazing production. I love the bass line and how the groove develops throughout the song. The harp arrangements, again, I think it's not, well, I guess they sampled a real harp, but it's, programmed harp, not live harp playing on the song, I don't think. Just like I love the transition from the previous song, the music box, how it just like slowly creeps into Aurora. And I especially love just like the vocal melody when it gets to the chorus, like da 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 da, octave higher, obviously, but just really builds really nicely, just super epic and just like a really beautiful song. Always one of the songs that stood out to me on Vespertine.
It really feels like Iceland. Like I listened to that track too, and it's just like feels like the North. Like it feels like I've been watching. I don't know if any of you. I'm just. Have you guys seen the show called Alone? It's like this thing that's on around, and I've been watching it. Really big fan of it. But it's like people who survive in the Arctic for like 100 days alone, and so it's just so cool to see like all these shots of like the North, and it's something I've been watching a lot lately. And when I heard Aurora, I was just like, man, there's nothing that captures that like the sound of like the Northern Lights, and like that song specifically just brought me to a different,
I could totally see that. Well, and one of the things that she says too, that she tries to capture in her music, which I think she does perfectly, is she says that to her, one of the things that is kind of specific to Iceland is that the people there are like very in tune with nature and also like really good with modern technology at the same time, like the fusion of like the natural world and like modern technology. And like I feel like songs like that are just like a perfect example of that, like what you were saying, like you're getting that like feeling of like the Northern Lights and being in that environment, but then also like it's very like electronic and like ambient, and it's like that's like such a beautiful combination that it's like very, I feel like very specific to her music.
Didn't she like sample "Walking in the Snow" in the beginning of that song?
Oh yeah, I think I never even thought of that, but yeah, while those sounds are like fading out, and then you hear that. Yeah, I didn't know that was "Walking in the Snow." That makes total sense, though. That's really cool. Yeah, so many great samples that she uses too. I mean, one of the greatest samplers. Just so much experimentation.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got, Nico? Number 6.
So my number 6, I pull my phone out here, is going to be Stone Milker, which is an absolutely killer tune, start to finish. But the thing that I really like about it, and the thing that sort of locked it in over the other songs on that record, I think Volmikira, is that I'm actually listening to it in the car today, and I realized that when she first comes in with the vocals, there's this sort of like beautiful string section playing, and all these like long sort of legato phrases, and the vocal melody is actually like really choppy and staccato, and it's like both because it's like kind of like a shorter phrased melody, and it's because she's singing, like so breathy at the time. She's like right up in the microphone, and as what winds up happening is like as it progresses through the sections and gets to the chorus, her vocal phrasing becomes increasingly connected and legato, but the arrangement continues to introduce more percussive elements. So it's like the band becomes less legato while the vocals become more legato, and they're always doing this throughout the entire tune. I kind of just realized it today, and I was like, oh, like this arrangement always like has felt so cohesive, and I wonder, like, it's one of those things you have to wonder, like, was that you want to believe it's a conscious decision, obviously, like how some of it's like how much of this was intuitive and how much of this was like planned, like blueprint and I think the balance and sort of the transitions between the gestures is just really well done. On a whole album with great gestures, obviously, it's a real standout to me. So that's on the list.
Perfect opening track for the album too. I mean, first, especially like if you're a fan of like the homogenic Vespertine sort of era, like that's like those are like kind of my two favorites. And like in the future albums, I was always hoping she would kind of revisit that. And I would say Vespertine is probably the closest thing to that. And you hear that right from the opening. Like as soon as I hear that opening string thing, I'm thinking of like homogenic era, like Björk, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Such an amazing album. Such a dark, like heartbreaking album too.
Yeah.
Especially when you get to Black Lake. It's like,
oh my god,
like the whole like first half of the album is just like leading up to like that. That's like just like the outpouring of like all the sadness and the grief and incredible album.
Black Lake is a tour de force.
Yeah, and it's like 10 minutes long too. Just like so, it's verse after verse after verse of her just like airing all of her grievances.
Yeah.
We got Robert 6.
Right. I also have a song from Volnicura. I have a Lion song. Yeah, it was Volnicura was one of those albums that took like a long time for me to get into because it was very depressing, and she was so miserable in the lyrics, and I just I didn't listen to it like for maybe a year after it came out because like I couldn't handle it. But then I tried, slowly, listening to it. I don't think I've listened to it all the way through, still. But yeah, Lion Song is probably the one. Like most of the, her recent work, she sings in staccato, while Lion Song, it's a little more fluid lyric, vocal wise. So it's you can sing along to it, even though. I mean, I can't relate to the lyrics since, I don't have a child and I've never been married and I haven't been broken up with. So glad for that. But yeah, I mean, some of the lyrics don't make any sense to me. Like, it's a sign of maturity to, what is it? It's a sign of maturity to handle complexity. I demand clarity. And it's like, what? That makes no sense. At least not for me. But yeah, and I think the music video is beautiful. It was shot by Ines and Vinud, one of the photographers she has worked the most with throughout her career, and the arc of production is it's brilliant.
Yeah, I love the version on Volnicura with strings too. Really nice version. Yeah, great song.
Number 5. We were kind of getting into this earlier, but Vespertine Cocoon, that I was talking about, that producer, composer, Thomas Knack of Opiate. And yeah, I have a little stat here. It's 80% of his music, he was invited to work with her, right? So he's had a whole career outside of Björk, but he's on record saying that, like, he creates these micro beats, these rhythms, and 80% of them are all natural sounds, or things that he's recording directly into a microphone, like clinking a cup or something. Just thought that was super neat, and so you can totally hear that element in Cocoon of that kind of micro beat sampling kind of sound. And so from what I was reading, that I think this was a little bit different than what you were saying earlier, Nico, about, I think that she kind of knew what his vibe was, and she kind of knew what he was able to bring. So I think he brought a lot of the elements to the song up top on the front, and then she kind of, painted her vocals on top of what he already did. But that's probably just the nature of the collaboration, because I think she kind of found him out, and I guess they were friends and they bought each other's music and all this stuff. And so I just thought that was just a cool thing that Björk was getting into, was that type of music. And I guess, he's a Danish musician, so just a cool thing. And Cocoon is just one of those that I really enjoyed. Vespertine.
Yeah, the production is incredible on that one. I don't know what kind of like synth or keyboard sounds are used on that, but that opening like keyboard sound is just like it's such a vibe. It's just such like a, it kind of reminds me of like one of my favorite albums is Tomorrow's Modern Boxes by Tom York. And obviously that was way later than this album, but I could picture a lot of this stuff kind of influencing maybe some of the Tom York solo stuff as well. Cause production wise, it sounds very similar to to that album that I was just talking about.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of crossover, you know?
Yeah. And that'll actually be a perfect segue into my number 5. My number 5 is going to be I've Seen It All off of Selma Songs. This was actually this might be the first Björk song I ever heard, because when I was in college, I was taking a music tech course, and the teacher played a snippet of this song for something. I don't remember what, but this song like instantly hit me because, you know, I love Tom York as well. And like their collaboration together is just like so beautiful, and this song is just like so intense and dark, and I think it might be sampled. I'm not sure if it's a live instrument, but that soprano sax that comes in when the second section enters, and then you have I think it's like a string section as well. I can never completely tell like what some of the instruments are in her songs too, which is cool because like the way it's produced and stuff. But also like that second verse when you hear like Björk and Tom York trading lines, to me, like that's also like a perfect example of what we were talking about with the way that she phrases her vocal line. Because you hear Tom York's and it's very like straight and like fits like very evenly in the 4/4 time. And then when Björk comes in, it's like so like kind of like staggered and like hanging over the bar. It's just so cool to see that contrast. But together, I think they just sound incredible. I've always loved this song.
Yeah, I had chosen that for one of mine as well. And to add to that a little bit, that was the song that I guess she won an Oscar for that song. And actually that song was co-written by the director of the film or of the musical drama. So he actually has a credit for that song, the actual director of the movie,
Nice.
which I thought was cool. And then so they won an Oscar, and then that was where she was known to wear the swan dress. So that was just kind of like one of those pop icon type of moments for her.
I haven't seen the movie yet, but I've heard it's super dark.
Yeah, it's a musical drama.
It is a musical?
I haven't seen it either, but I mean, probably should see this movie.
Oh yeah, no, that's on my list for sure.
But the music is great.
Yeah, great soundtrack.
Yeah.
Nice. All right, what do you got, Nico? Number 5.
We've already touched on this one. My number 5 was Hyper Ballad. So, absolutely killer. Great gateway song for the uninitiated. The vocal
That's the song I
phrasing.
show my like non-musician friends.
Yep.
You know?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's so funny too. Like, you know, it's one of those songs like I'm sure we've all listened to it dozens of times, and sometimes like even though it's so weird. I don't know how to describe it, but even though you know it's coming when it sort of drops into the 4 on the floor house beat at the end, like you know it's coming, but somehow it still never feels predictable. Even
that's so true, because I was listening to that today, and when that ending part came in, I was like, I forgot about this.
Yeah, it's
so true.
It's such an interesting decision, you know, because she's absolutely the queen of like the languid electro pop ballad, and she could have easily just kept it that and not done the power pop chorus at the end, but it's so much better because of it in the second half. Yeah, I can't say enough good things about it. It rightly deserves all the accolades, I guess.
Such a great song to follow Army of Me too. I mean, that just, you know, those 2 songs to start out an album is just so ridiculous. I mean, such a crazy start to an album.
There are people's careers that have hit less hard than that opener.
Yeah, very true. All right, Robert, what do you got for number 5?
I have a song from Drawing Restraint 9 called I don't know how to pronounce it, to be honest. I think it's Ambergris March. It's an instrumental song. I think there's like a glockenspiel there in it.
What's it start with? What are the first few letters of the song?
Ambergris March, like the what's it called, like a stone, right?
Amber, yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's probably one of the songs from hers that I've listened to most to. I just think it's very You know, it's Björk doesn't really make a lot of like great background music. It's very intense, but like this is one of the songs that you can put on in the background and just
And what was the story behind this album, Drawing Restraint 9, number 9?
Right, I think her former husband made a film.
Right.
She made the soundtrack for it.
Yeah, I gotta check it out. I listened to it once a long time ago. I gotta check it out again. I gotta get outside of the non-studio albums. The only album I've really listened to besides the non-studio one was Selma Songs, but there's definitely a couple others. Sweet.
Yeah, all the bell sounds, like all of the, I'm listening to it now. It's just those creep into all of her stuff. She's always got some kind of bell tones, Icelandic. It's like a branding. It's almost like a brand. I don't want to call it branding, but it is how I remember her. You know.
Yeah. Well, she's trying to define her interpretation of Icelandic music. You know, and I think it's clearly working if that's what you're thinking of when you're hearing it. You know.
I just want to know how many different instruments of bell-like instruments does she get her hands on? I mean, they're all different. They all have their own character, it seems like.
It's hard to tell too, because a lot of times when you look at the production credits and stuff, like a lot of times it's not like, it's very vague. It'll just say like this person like did production on this song. I'm just like, all right, well, what are the instruments? I want to know like what the instruments are going on. You know, like I was trying to figure out on which song was it? I forget, one of the songs I was trying to figure out like one of the instruments. I think it was on Aurora. I was trying to figure out what one of the instruments were, and I just couldn't find any information on it like anywhere. And it's like, so it's tricky sometimes to figure out exactly what's going on.
Would love someone to find out and get back. Post in your comments.
That'd be a great YouTube channel, like some guy who's like worked for Björk, just showing like the behind the scenes of like what's going on in the studio. That would be so cool to see what's going on.
I would pay good money for that.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Number 4, Aurora.
Sweet.
Yeah,
nice.
So we covered that.
And my number 4 is another one we've already covered, Stone Milker. I think we said everything we need to say about that. Great production by Arca. Probably my favorite opening track of any Björk album, if I had to pick one. Especially when that chorus comes in, like you were saying about the way the vocals are phrased. I never thought of it like that, but that makes perfect sense. But like that chorus just hits so hard, just so like heartbreaking when those notes come in. I just love this song.
I was thinking too, does everyone know what Vespertine means? I actually didn't know what that meant, Vespertine. I know that's a different album, but does anybody know what that means? I looked it up. It means active in the evening. So I thought that was something kind of cool. Just a word that I never knew.
You know what medulla is?
What does that mean?
Marrow in Latin, right?
Yeah, it's a translation from marrow, because she was saying that she wanted to make that album, like I was saying, it's like mostly a vocal album, and she wanted people to know that a vocal album didn't have to be vegetarian. That's what she said. She's like, I wanted like a strong feeling of meat and blood of the album. Which as soon as you hear like where's the line, you're like, yeah, there's the meat and the blood for sure. Hold it up. And then Vulnicura, that's a made up word. It's a combination of vulnerable and cured, maybe. I don't know. I forget what the second word is, but it was a combination of like 2 words that she kind of wanted the theme of the album to be based off of. So another cool thing, right? Trying to figure out what the words mean. Not just figuring out what the instruments are, but like what the actual titles of the albums are as well. Nico, what's your number 4?
So my number 4, going to sort of the exact opposite of Meat and Blood, is Crystalline off of Biophilia, which it's another song that I sort of keep coming back to. I feel like people either sleep on that album or they kind of give it a lot of hate, but I think some of her finest moments are sort of all over that record. And I think that sort of a lot of the things we've been talking about already, where sort of like this impossible sense of stereo space, bells everywhere, of course, in Crystalline. And I don't know what effect is on them. They're almost pitched really weirdly. I've never like tested it out with the keyboard or anything, but they almost seem like they're out of tune. But not in a way where they're in between the notes or anything, but like I can't tell what the notes really are definitively. The only thing after
Right.
the bass line comes in. And then obviously there's that insane drum break at the end, the drum and bass break, with just, the drums are absolutely slammed. It's just brick wall. It's like this huge contrast. But I think that album is, and you know, that song sort of is quintessentially what's on the album. And I think that album sort of represents a, not rawer, but I guess more. I mean, how can you say more experimental when someone's always experimenting? But sort of like some of her like more interesting like sonic palette choices, I think, are on that record, and they're really exemplified in that song. So that's why I put that on.
That's definitely my favorite track on that album.
Yeah.
And that's also, it's not in 4/4. I think it's in something crazy like 15 or something, right? Which I haven't been able to figure out the counting on it yet. But if you watch the Biophilia, the making of that, the documentary, I guess like the way she came up with that song, because each song in that album has like a different theme that it's based on like nature, and this song is based on crystals. And she did something. She was working with David Attenborough like during the making of that album, and they were talking about different philosophical concepts with music and nature and how you can fuse them together. And the time signature of that song has something to do with like the structure of a crystal. So I don't know how she came up with 15/8, but she said she was like trying to figure out how to take the structure of a crystal and put it in like some sort of rhythmic.
I was just
sense.
looking up the definition of crystalline, and you know, crystalline solid is a solid material whose constituents, such as atoms, molecules, or ions, are arranged in a highly ordered microscopic structure. So, what'd you say? 15 is a special number?
I think it's 15/8. Have you guys ever seen that picture? There's like a chart for this album. Have you ever seen that?
I don't know. I think that is right though, because I remember I definitely tried to recreate that percussion loop on my looper pedal once and just play every layer, like one layer at a time. And it definitely sounds like it's a multiple of 5. Like that seems right to me. So 15 seems logical.
I don't know if you can read. I don't know if this is clear or not. This is the chart. Yeah, it's kind of hard to see, but she has like each song for the album, and then the natural element, and then the musicology. So crystalline, it says the song is crystalline, the natural element is crystal structure, and the musicology is structure and spatial musical environments. So, yeah, wow.
That's heavy.
It definitely is like a lattice, though. You know, like those bell are. It's very like Reichian in a lot of
grooves too. It's like also like grooves at the same time, and it's so many different emotions coming through on that song. Such a great song. I also like Virus a lot on that album. That's probably my other favorite.
I like Natura is really good with Brian Chippendale playing drums.
Is that the last song?
Yeah, the one that she sings in Icelandic.
I think that's in 7, right?
Yep.
It's in like a really weird 7. At first I thought it was 13. I was like counting double time. I was like, oh wait, no, I think it is like a 7, but the beat is like so syncopated it can like throw you off.
It's the drummer from Lightning Bolt, Brian Chippendale. I don't know if anybody knows that band. 10 out of 10 would recommend.
What are they called? Lightning Bolt?
Lightning Bolt, yeah. It's just a bassist and a drummer, and it's like noise rock. They play the most aggressive stuff imaginable, but both of them are monsters that they're into.
Have you ever heard of Bangladeshi?
I don't think so, no.
Andrew, you remember him, right?
Yeah.
When he said like a bass and drums and it's like really aggressive, the first thing I thought of was Bangladeshi, another group. I think he might be from New York or New Jersey, somewhere on the East Coast, but another similar group. Wait, but the guy's last name is Chippendale?
Yeah, it's the band is two Brians. It's two Brians, Brian Gibson and Brian Chippendale.
That's awesome. Badass.
Yeah, they're monsters. They
so I'll check that out.
Definitely.
Oh yeah. All right, Robert, number 4.
Number 4, I have In the Musicals, which is a song from Selma Songs. Yeah, it's probably the happiest song from that album. The entire album is, it's quite miserable. It's right. Yeah, if you don't like sad movies, I wouldn't recommend watching Dance in the Dark. Yeah, it's I'm not really into, that sort of old school, the musical sort of music. I just think it sounds, cliche and tacky. But yeah, she made one of those songs that sounds similar to that, and like she sampled a lot of, just random things like paper shuffling and tapping a pencil on the table, and yeah, it's really fun. It's really you know yeah, I'd explain it as fun. That's how I would describe it. And yeah, it's not as serious as the rest of the film. I can't really listen to most of the other songs from that album because it's very depressing. But that's a song that I listen about too. Oh, I listen to a lot. Yeah, I'm sorry, English isn't my first language.
You're doing just as good as we are. Don't worry.
Yeah,
You're doing fine.
If not better.
Yeah, probably better. Yeah, you're actually pronouncing her name right, so that's a start. Which is more than we could say. All right, we're on number 3, final 3. All right, now I'm curious to see if we have any overlap because there are a couple that none of us have mentioned yet. I'm wondering if they're gonna pop in here. So what do you got, Andrew?
Okay, so one final thought on the crystals thing, because I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Here.
I'll send you the documentary. It's fascinating.
A single snowflake is a single crystal or a collection of crystals, while an ice cube is a polycrystal. So I guess there's different structures of a crystal, and they have different categories. So crystalline is a specific category of crystal versus like a polycrystal, or there's like an amorphous solid, such as, and that would be glass. So I just thought that was like a cool little tidbit. But anyway, number 3, Overture, Dancer in the Dark. I liked this piece. I was like really interested in knowing, like, wow, did she really compose this? And she did. She like composed all of it, and but she did have help from a arranger. His name is Vince Mendoza, and Vince Mendoza was someone that like I was introduced to when I was talking about jazz band and school and all this stuff. My director was really into Vince Mendoza, and Vince Mendoza has collaborated with a bunch of people. Like he collaborated with Joni Mitchell for those, like I think it was Both Sides Now and Travelogue. And actually, I was looking up. Vince Mendoza collaborated with her the same year as he collaborated with Björk with Dancer in the Dark, which I thought was a cool thing. Within the same year, that same arranger was working with both Joni and Björk. Just a very cool connection to me. And outside of Björk's music, Vince Mendoza has just been someone I've really been a big fan of. So I figured I'd bring his name up, and I just, that's my wheelhouse. I love that kind of orchestral, thick ranging, dense arranging, and it's definitely there in that song. Have to love it. Yeah, so that's my.
We're getting a lot of tracks from that album on our lists. Yeah. It's popping up a lot. One of the things that's interesting about that album too is like the placement of it in her catalog, because I looked it up after we said it. Vespertine or Homogenic is 97 and Vespertine was 2001. So there's like this gap of 4 years, and then this album had come out in between that, which is really interesting because it's in terms of like the production and the vibe and the songwriting, obviously it's different because it was made for a movie, but it definitely doesn't sound similar to like Homogenic and Vespertine when you compare the two. So it's like cool to kind of have that just like sandwiched in between.
Well, she was acting too in there. I guess she won an award for acting as well. So I think she like was, from the brief thing I read, she was completely exhausted with like that. I mean, how could you not be if you compose the entire score and you're like a significant role? Like
And she had a kid after Homogenic too, right? Or when did she have her first kid? Was it? Yeah, I don't know. But regardless, she was probably very busy.
Yeah.
You know what's a weird thing too? I was just thinking about this. I wanted to point this out because me and Nico are guitar players. Like, it's so interesting too, like being really into Björk as a guitar player, because we're talking about all these crazy instruments that she uses, and I don't think she has guitar on like any of her songs. I feel like that's like the one instrument she doesn't use, you know?
I
like
don't know of any guitar.
I can't think of one. Like, is there any?
There is.
There is.
Right, on the B side from the album from the Yoga, single. It's called So Broken. She has like Spanish guitars on it.
Oh, okay. I'll write that down. Nice.
Yeah,
you're coming through with a lot of deep cuts. I love it.
Yeah.
It's important to have a guy like you on these videos.
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend the studio version because it's the audio isn't that clean. It sounds sort of muffled. But yeah, listen to the live version. It's great.
The live version has guitar, or they both have guitar?
They both have guitar. The vocals are just much better on the live version than on the...
I'll check it out. That'd be interesting to hear what she sounds like with a guitar. Something I've never heard.
Yeah, I honestly think like that's one of the best vocals in all of her, in her entire discography. So Broken.
Sweet. I'm gonna check that out. Yeah, all these obscure ones we're bringing up too. I'll put links for all of them in the comments. So my number 3, I'm just gonna go with a cliche one. I'm gonna do Venus as a Boy. Super solid track. Very catchy vocal melody. One of her songs that I get stuck in my head a lot. Just the vocal line. I love the keyboard, the production. I think one of the best produced songs on Debut. I haven't always been crazy about the production on the entirety of Debut, but I think this song has really solid production. Love the keyboard sound. It might even be a vibraphone. I'm not sure, but those like arpeggios behind the chorus. The I can't tell. Once again, I can't tell exactly what instrument it is. Great lyrics. Great song.
Sounds like vibraphone a little bit. I mean, from what I can hear.
Yeah, vibraphone with some effects on it or something. Yeah, it's great.
It would be great to have someone just figure out the name of every bell instrument she's ever used. Can someone please do that?
That's an idea.
I appreciate that.
Like bells that like in harmonics, when you hit a bell, like there's all those overtones and like they usually a lot. And like I wonder if that's like, I don't know if it's like because of Iceland but I wonder if that like just for her personally is like something that she's really into, this idea of like inharmonic tones, then it would naturally follow that like she's really into bells. Because they are all over the place, like you said, Andrew. And it's like, so I wonder if like that sound, like that clang of, and like sort of these like denser harmonic content up top. Like I wonder if that's just something that she finds really appealing and would be interesting to hear her speak on that, because that's certainly what it seems like to me. Like we all have like certain things that we're really into. I wonder if that's like something that gets Björk jazzed up.
Definitely. Not to bring up the show again, but this show talks about the Arctic, and a lot of them are sitting there at night, and when it gets really cold, like it's the Arctic, so -20, -30 degrees, and the lake, like this huge lake, starts freezing over. It makes tones, it makes sounds, and like it can be chaotic, it can be like thunder, or it can create like these, because the ice is forming and moving, and it does create an entire landscape of sound. And I'm sure there's someone who knows a bunch about that, but you can't ignore that's got to be a huge influence, just like the natural elements around her and utilizing that in her sounds.
As a geography nerd, I just need to point out that Iceland isn't within the Arctic Circle.
How far away is it?
It isn't, right? There's like a small island north of Iceland that's halfway through the Arctic Circle, but Iceland is south of the Arctic Circle.
Oh, but I'm glad you let me know.
Our that's showing.
Must be pretty icy though.
All right, Robert, I'm very intrigued with what your number 2 and number 1 are going to be. I want to see if they're going to be curveballs. What's your number 2?
Right, I haven't told you my number 3 yet.
Oh, we're on 3? Oh, right. Shit, you're right. Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, number 3, my bad.
Number 3. It's Fletta that she's sang together with Enohni on one of her albums called Swan Light. It could, basically be a Björk song, but, it says it's an Anthony and the Johnson song. But like she sings in the majority of it, and she just and Oceania just sings in the back. It's entirely in Icelandic, and I just feel like it's a very intimate song between like her and like one of her great friends, and like they've made so many songs together. It's it's very intimate and just perfect song to listen to when you're like watching sunset.
How do you spell it?
Fletta.
Oh, okay, cool. Another one that I have to check out. All right, now we got the final two. Drew, what do you got?
We've already talked about it. I've seen it all.
Nice.
Yeah, Tom York. Yeah, of course. That was
Hell
my
yeah.
one too.
So good.
Yeah, on to you, Mike.
My number two is "It's Not Up to You," which we just talked about as well. So we're seeing some overlap.
Nice. My number two is, I had it as my number one, but I'm switching them after everything we've talked about. It's gonna be Unison for a lot of the same reasons as this. I was so on the fence between this and the other one being number one, and the same thing. It goes back to like everything we talked about. Where like this is a song that anybody who's like a major pop act could release today, and people would be like, "Wow, they're so cutting edge." But she did this years and years ago, and it has all the things. It's got these sort of major pop sensibilities with the vocal hook, absolutely ridiculous orchestral arrangement, all the electronic elements. To me, it's like quintessential the Björk sound, and everything just comes together perfectly. And that vocal melody, it's the last song on Vespertine, right? Yeah. So like Vespertine like opens with like the very like sensual, almost like James Bond theme, like Hidden Place, right? And then like it sort of goes through a bunch of different places, but it kind of ends almost as it begins in this sort of like energy level with this like sort of like, it's like a very romantic, like there's like a physicality to the vocal, and that's for all the times we talk about her being like very ethereal, there's like a lot of like earthy, like flesh and blood ness to her delivery.
Yeah.
On it. So it's it just grabs you. It just grabs you the entire time. You can't look away.
When I first listened to Vespertine, it was one of those albums where like every single song I was loving it, and like I couldn't believe how many good songs were on one album. And I remember I was approaching the end of the album, and I was like, how is this album gonna end? Like, is it gonna end on a solid track? And then like when that chorus came in, I was like, oh my god, like how it like this is like it ends on like one of the most insane songs on the album. I mean, to me, the entire album is perfect. There's like not a dull moment, and this song is like just the icing on the cake to the album.
I get the joy giggles when that chorus comes in for the first time.
So good.
You can't not just break a huge.
Another part of that album that I love, which didn't make my list, but that song "An Echo with Stain," that's probably like the most haunting song I think I've ever heard. Like even theory wise, like do you know that song, Andrew?
Not familiar.
Listen to it. I have no idea what's going on. It's got this really dark, like mysterious chord. I don't even know what like chord quality it is, and then her vocal melody on top of it is doing all these weird intervals. It's like really scary and like almost like demonic sounding. It's crazy. Listen to it. But the way it breaks up the album, I think, is perfect, because you have like all of these like hard-hitting banger songs, and then you just kind of like have this, which is not like a breather, I don't want to say, because it's not relaxing to listen to, but it's like a transitional, like a transitionary song that sets up like the final 3 tracks of the album. But incredible album. Maybe when we're done with the list, we should just go through and just say like what our favorite and least favorite Björk album would be. I'm curious what you guys would think about that. So we're on two. So what do you got? Robert now for number 2, right?
Right. I have It's in Our Hands. It's a single she released back in 2002. She co-produced it. She co-produced it with Drew Daniel from Matmos. She'd often like finish her, Vespertine live shows with that song, and it's like such a happy song, and like people were dancing, and the Greenlandic choir in the background were clapping, and it's like she looked so happy singing that song. I think it's such a underrated one. And the music video, it's produced by Spike Jones. It's her, in pitch black, darkness in the middle of the night, walking around like huge plants, as if she was like some sort of insect. And it's a great one.
I can't believe how little I know like any of the songs on your list. I think the only one I've known so far is Oceania, or however you say it. So I got a lot of homework to do after this.
I think you've heard Lion Song as well.
Oh yeah, right. Yeah, maybe I'll know your number one. We will see.
Oh yeah, you definitely will.
All right, nice. Here it is. Here's the big moment. Number one, Andrew.
My favorite it's just because it's the first one I ever heard from her, and it was Like Someone in Love, the cover.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and
was not expecting really that.
Cool. Right, and I mean, I don't know if it really is my ultimate favorite the more I dive in, but that was the one that like I was, when you're in college, you're like looking through like, okay, I need to hear references. What is this song? I didn't even know what the song was at that time, and didn't know it was a jazz standard. And I remember just like flipping through, like all these different recordings, and it's like, Chet Baker and all these different arrangements of it. And then like I came across Björk, and I'm like, what is this? Like, not what I was expecting. And so that's my song. I looked up a little bit about it. The harpist, there's a big prominent harp. It's basically just her and harp, and like some ethereal, kind of wind sound. The harpist's name is Corky Hale, and Corky he was born in 1936, and he was like the go-to guy in terms of harp with like Hollywood harp. He played with Sinatra, Bill Holiday, Liberace, and so it's just cool that like it's cool to hear that kind of that collaboration, and I definitely wouldn't call it in the tradition, of jazz, but it's just very neat the way that a musician like him could meet the challenge of something Björk is trying to do. I think it's cool. So, yeah.
Yeah, if we're going off of like some of her jazzier stuff, I definitely prefer this song over It's Oh So Quiet. No, I like It's Oh So Quiet, but I think it would have worked better as a single. I don't know, like when it gets to that track on Post, that's where it kind of loses a little bit momentum for me, because it starts with like all these bangers, and then like it goes into like this jazz song out of nowhere, which is like, it's a really cool song on its own, but in the context of that album, I always felt like it was kind of random. But yeah. I've always preferred Like Someone in Love over that. I feel like Someone in Love doesn't feel as forced in the context of debut, right. With where it happens.
Yeah,
but I think it's a very solid arrangement.
It's a stronger jazz standard too. IMO, not to stir the pot.
Yeah. No, that's a great standard. Yeah, I love that. All right, I'm going to be super cliche with my number one and go with Hyper Ballad, just because it's just too good. I mean, like what you were saying before, Nico, like every time you listen to it, like there's still things that throw you off guard, and it's just such a powerful song. I really love the lyrics too. I don't pay attention to lyrics as much as I should, but for some reason, this song, the lyrics have always really stuck out to me, particularly like the chorus. It's just like so heartbreaking. And I love those background keyboard parts that are going on in the chorus. And just like the really cool groove too, like production, like everything. It's just like a perfect song. And like you guys were saying, a great song to introduce somebody to Björk.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about the groove too. It's also like a great example of like, we're talking about like how you can have like almost the entire grid be filled aggressively, but not play heavy.
Yeah.
Like that sort of like that juxtaposition. Like, I don't know, like I know you teach, Mike, so it's like, there's something like I'm always trying to explain to the kids is like, even if you're not playing heavy, you can still be playing aggressively 100% of the time. I'm trying to get them to understand that dichotomy where like, no, you should still try hard and play with 100% confidence, even if you're supposed to be playing in like a subdued section. Like that, that drum groove, even if it is a drum machine, is like a perfect example of that. Like everything can be locked in and super funky, but not raging at the same time.
Yeah, because even when the chorus comes in and it picks up some of the intensity, the drums don't like go that much harder, but like it fits so perfectly with the intensity of the song.
Yeah.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I wonder if it's a 7. I'm looking. It's like almost an 8-minute song. So I wonder, like, in terms of it being like a
Wait, hyper ballad?
Yeah.
Really? I thought it was like 5 minutes.
Oh, well, maybe
It's an auditory illusion.
I'm seeing it on YouTube, 7 minutes and like 50 seconds.
Mine on Spotify, it says 5 minutes and 20 seconds.
So that's probably the radio edit then.
Right. I think the one on YouTube, it's like the music video. It's a little longer.
Oh yeah,
it's got like an intro. Yeah.
Like, but even 5 minutes in pop, like in terms of pop charts, like that's hard. It's a hard feat.
Oh yeah.
2 minutes longer. What's profitable?
Right.
Yeah, but I mean, by today's standards, I don't even know like what. Like I have like kids that I teach, and I can't even get them to listen to like 30 seconds of a song. You know, like you put on a song, like 10 seconds later, they're already like not even paying attention. It's sad. All right, we're on number 1. All right, I just did my number 1. Now we got final 2, Nico and Robert.
Okay, so my number 1 is Desired Constellation. Medulla. And
nice.
This is for me, I guess the shortest way to describe it is that song seems like it came from somewhere else. Like even for Björk, not to like sort of underwrite any of her genius, obviously, but like that song seems like it exists outside of space and time, and she just like pulled it out of the ether, right? There's almost no instrumentation on it. There's that one super bit crush sample off of something on Vespertine, but I don't know what it is. I don't know if any of you...
You're talking about like the main part that opens the track?
Yeah, there's like the whole song is just like pulsing bit crusher in the background, and supposedly it's off of Vespertine somewhere, but I don't know what piece of it is, and it's just that with her vocals. There's like one little like bass note spurt somewhere else, but it sounds... It's a song that made me fall in love with the Bit Crusher as an effect, because it sounds so frozen and like liminal. Like it's one of those things like the sound could never happen, could never occur naturally, and you just have it sort of like pulsing and like flickering away. It's like almost like this like candle flame in like a frozen landscape. And then of course she comes in with this absolutely soaring vocal part on top of it, and it's sort of the opposite of like the crazy pop production of Unison, where this is complete minimalism, Bit Crusher, low bass drone, vocals, but the whole thing just fits together, and it is like liminal is the only way to describe it. Like it's not, it just doesn't seem possible, and yet here it is, you know, frozen on the record for us to listen to over and over again. So every time I hear it, it's like, you know, there's like a full body like dilation sensation. It's like you're hearing it for the first time. You're just instantly transported somewhere else. And I'm probably going to listen to it as soon as this is over because I love it that much.
One of the weird things about that song too is even with how minimal it is and how minimal instrumentation is going on, I think this is one of the only songs on the album that actually uses non-vocal like parts in a song, which is interesting. Because when I was going through, once I realized that the entire album is almost all vocals, like this was like the one song where I was like, oh, okay, there's something else going on. But I didn't realize it's just a sample from Vespertine.
That's what I remember reading that somewhere, and supposedly it's also a vocal sample. And they just crushed the hell out of it. So it still technically is all vocals, but they've created a new instrument out of the vocals.
That album is incredible. Such an interesting album. Have you listened to that Tom York album I brought up, Tomorrow's Modern Boxes?
I think so, but it was long ago, probably.
Well, because if you like the vibe and the production of that song, that the Desired Constellations, check out that Tom York album. It's similar in the same vein, I would say, production-wise.
Yeah, I'll have to give it another listen. I haven't done anything Radiohead or Radiohead adjacent in a long time. I need to get back into it.
I want to do another one of these videos with Radiohead too. So if any of you guys are interested in that, I would gladly do this with you guys again. If we got any Radiohead fans here,
I'll do it again.
All right, Robert, let's hear it.
Bring it home.
As number 1, I have Pagan Poetry.
Yeah, nice.
Right. Yeah, it's a really intense, song. Especially on Vespertine, because it's such, Vespertine is such a, quiet album, and then like having Pagan Poetry, which is like just such a powerful song. Like the music video got like banned from MTV because it was a little too sexual for them. Um, yeah, it's such an interesting song, and I love the ad libs, and she just like screams and goes on and on and on, and yeah, it's very
That's
emotional.
interesting. It's interesting too, because a lot of the songs that you had picked, you said you like more of the upbeat kind of like happy songs of hers. So I was expecting more of an upbeat happy song for your number one.
Right.
So that's that was actually on my list, and I took it off. I switched it with Aurora. I've been conflicted between those two for that album, but such an amazing song. It uses the music box, right? That opening sound is that music box. So such a cool sound. Such a great song.
I remember reading somewhere that when she wanted to have the music box for Vespertine, like all the companies she contacted just like made like wood music boxes, because like they wanted to sort of get rid of everything that like music boxes that make music boxes unique. They wanted to just sound more pleasant and softer, but she wanted like that harsh raw sound from a music box, so she made it in plastic, and I think like that's probably one of the best musical decisions ever made.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, good luck finding a dark music box. It's actually no. I guess I feel like sometimes in horror movies they'll have like a creepy sort of like music box playing like a little song, but I feel like typically the stuff that music boxes play is more upbeat and happy, but maybe like the context makes it darker. But like the way that she's able to take that music box and get these like dark like arpeggios and like just very like atmospheric kind of sounds out of it. I just love it. One of my favorite things about that album is that music box sound. It's very specific to that album. Nice. We did it. We made it. Sweet. Well, that was a lot of fun. I appreciate you guys doing this. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me down. It was a pleasure to
absolutely
talk off.
Post everything, right? Like all the things we talked about, because I definitely
when I'm going through and editing it, I'll write down all the links, and then when I post the video, I'll put the comments. We'll put the links. By the way, I know Andrew, I know you have a YouTube channel. I don't know if either of you guys have a channel, but if you do, I'd be happy to put it. Nico, do you have one?
I am not on YouTube yet. That is
okay.
The goal for me this fall.
Well, whenever you do, I'll put it in the comments of the video. I'll do it for you as well, Andrew. And then, like I said, if you guys ever want to do another one of these, if Joni Mitchell, I'd love to do one of hers in the future as well. So any artists that we all line up on, I'd be happy to do this again. This is a lot of fun.
Definitely, yeah. I'd be down for
always down.
Any band, any artist.
Sweet, awesome. Well, I will send this over to you guys when it's up, and hopefully we can do it again sometime. So thanks again. Enjoyed it,
guys.
Thanks again.
Great meeting everyone.
Go.
Have a good night.
Bye. Nice to meet everybody.
Bye. Later.